meeting is a 10-minute speaker. Our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Art.
Art.
Thank you guys. Art alcoholic. All things for us.
Got it.
Okay. Really nervous. So I'm Art alcoholic. I grew up in a Latin family who had no concept of anything like AA or anything like that. The way we solved our problems, if it got too bad, is we took ourselves out with a gun in the mouth. That's what we did. 4 major father figures in my family went out that way. So I always had that in the back of my mind. If it gets too bad, that's, I got that. I love methamphetamine and I like whiskey a lot. I was good at it. I was good at it too. Never got in trouble with the law, no DUIs, no nothing like that. I was like a professional, paranoid person that knew how to get away with it. Until it doesn't, Around 2008, when things started falling apart, I got invited to my brother's party that his rich friend threw him in Rosarito. And they were bringing along this really pretty blonde with them that I'd never met before. And we hit it off immediately. It's just like, she just had the personality of, the best personality ever. And I had no concept of anything like that. Or that my brother and his wife had kind of behind my back made us kind of, meet. So we hit it off, and I remember seeing this person at the party, the life of the party, by the way, and thinking, well, the first thing I said was, what's that pendant on your deal there? What's that about? And she's like, that's Alcoholics Anonymous and whatnot. And then I remember seeing her at the party. I'm wasted, but she's leading the conga line. She's, the life of the party. And it came back to me like, she's sober. So I literally had to go up to her like, you haven't drank all night? Like, what's with the laughter? What's with the... And, she just kept coming back to me and dancing and whatever, and we just had a blast and really connected. So, of course, I'm smitten, not thinking anything about AA or anything like that. And, she's the one for me. And obviously she likes me too, so it's on. So I came back in love and she asked me to go to a meeting. And I was like, man, if she's getting to like what's important in her life, this is good, I got a shot, and she took me to the We Are Not Saints meeting in Torrance. And I don't remember hearing anything. And when we left, and of course I wore my Harley boots, but I didn't have a Harley, but I wanted people to think that. We left and she goes, did you hear any of the men speaking and say something you might like? And why would I even do that? I have no concept that people are trying to help me because I'm in trouble. So, I found out eventually that, she was like maybe down the road or something, but right now get sober, And I was like, whatever. So that was done. According to her, I called her and left her drunk. I drunk dialed her and left her messages like, might have called her a tease a long time or two. But I don't remember doing that, but she was sober and I wasn't. Time went by where she would reach out to me and see how I was doing, and I wasn't doing good, and invite me to a meeting. I wanted nothing to do with it. She'd ask me if I read the book, and I would lie to her, that I was reading the book. I wasn't. And then we just sort of, I stopped bugging her, and I guess she didn't give up, but, some time went by to where, everything really, the rug got pulled out from under me really, really bad, or I put myself in a bad spot. To where my brother, the last person that I had on my side, handed me some money and said, you can't be around the family anymore. I was in some cheap motel room in Orange, and, for somebody with the ego that I have to, be living in some place like that, I had to come to terms with stuff. So I called up the VA and took the bus there, and they said, yeah, we'll take you. Give us some sobriety. And I was like, I'm crazy. I need a pill. You can waste your time or mine. But, I don't have a place to stay. And if you guys are saying you demand that, then okay. Later on, we'll diagnose you. We could get a proper diagnosis. Give us some sobriety. Okay, that's your deal. But we don't have a place for you right now. They're redoing all the facilities there. Really nice facilities, by the way. They're all up in Big Bear. We don't have a place for you. You're going to have to, be on the streets, or go to the mission, which I don't know how to do that, So I called my brother, even though he said, don't ever call him again. And he goes, call Kelly. And I was like, she doesn't want anything to do with me. Like, why would she answer the phone? He's like, call her, I talked to her, she'll answer the phone because I don't want to talk to you. And I did, And she said, if you could get down to Torrance on the bus, I'll help you out. So I was like, cool. She's going to let me move in with her and it's going to be on. There's no way to... Literally from the mall there. And I'm still fixing my hair even though I'm all sucked up and haven't, I don't look right, thinking this is the beginning of something cool. So she gets me in the car and she's like, we're driving towards her place. So, it's all right. And then we don't go to her house because I'd been there before. And I'm like, this is the way to your house. She's like, yeah, you're not coming home with me. No, go ahead. And she takes me to a sober living because this woman can make miracles happen. She's like, hey, I need a guy. He doesn't have any money. He's waiting for the VA to take him in. He needs 2 weeks. And they're like, bring him in. She would bring me cigarettes and some money and stuff while I lasted there. And, I owe her a lot for saving my life. It got better after that. I was what they call I had perfect patient syndrome. Like when I got to the VA facility, I had to do everything right. And from not knowing anything about AA to getting 3 days before my 13th birthday in, approximately 4 years ago, I did it that way. I did well. I went from not knowing anything to just doing this right. Every day got better. Every day that I was sober got better. About 4 years ago, well, it was longer than that when I took that first drink, but I moved to, with about 9 years sober out of California, I left the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area, and things were different down there. You can't roll up out of bed and land at a meeting like we can here. But I didn't put too much into it, Find a sponsor, okay. 1 week turned into 2 weeks. And it's a textbook example of how to go out when I was sure I would die sober. And I remember being clever about it. So I was like, just like I was good at doing speed and drinking whiskey, like maybe I could be the one exception, to this, Maybe I could. What I didn't realize is that I stopped doing the 12-step. I stopped thinking about me instead of who's there. Oh, those meetings suck. I got to drive all the way to Cincy. I got to do this, It's like I'm the guy with the most time in all these meetings, That's the way I processed it and made an excuse for, not going back, not showing up. And I remember thinking, I got money, AA's given me the life that I wanted. I mean, literally, I would drive my Harley down the road and think, this is freedom. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, And so I got a sweet in Indianapolis and planned it for 2 weeks from now. That's when I'm going to take a drink. So see, I didn't go out. I didn't not have a mental defense for this. I'm doing it with forethought, thinking that would, eliminate the problem. But so I did, and it was what I needed. Oh my God, wow, yeah, it was good. In fact, I kept them from a couple of people, so to see if they would notice any changes. And of course, it was okay for the first whatever, and they did notice. And then it went to hell within like 9 months. Just horrible. I mean, lost my job, lost everything, money, everything. I don't even know how it all got that bad. And I called Kelly up again. And I didn't want to tell my brother, but I told her. And she's like, well, I'm going to tell your brother if you don't. Because she said something really important. For you to drink is to die. And I remember thinking, even then in the miserable hell that I had created, nobody's dying, I could handle this. This will be all right. Nobody's dying. I then later on got what she meant, That art died, I remember my friends saying, we miss the old art. Go get help. You don't belong drinking. We miss them. That's what she meant. Yeah, I wasn't going to go to the hospital and expire physically. But I did die. And eventually I moved back to California and started putting together a few days here, a few days there. And got in contact with Kelly again and plugged me into meetings. And I live in West Covina, which told me about the 502 Club, and I asked Paul to be my sponsor, which he had been basically over there for a long time. And I'm here, and I got a year and a half now. Thank you.
Everyone, we're back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Paul W. from Sunset Beach.
Hope my nose doesn't run. We are so human. My name is Paul, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic and an addict for sure. I loved vodka and the devil's dandruff, and I had that. I mean, I wanted with the right amount of cocaine and vodka in my system. I wanted to write down everything I thought because it was brilliant. I didn't want to leave the room because I was afraid I'd miss what I was saying. It was just, you know. I'm sober a long time, and it's been a while since I've spoken at one in-person meeting because my home group is Lucky 13, which is a Zoom meeting. Lucky 13, which used to meet on the sand in Sunset Beach, but now we're cyber cuddling, and about a third of the media is here. I mean, Wes is here, Victoria is here, Kelly Breed is here. Art, you were great. That was not the plan. I mean, I am still easily intimidated, and you know what? It's enough that you're twice as tall as me, and what color I have, I got from the light in my refrigerator. You look so, that great tan and all like that, you know. But you know what? My favorite, I heard a lot in what you shared, and it was a great share. It was not. I mean, it just yeah. My favorite part was smitten. It's like money, property, prestige, and smitten were problems for me. Actually, it's not smitten. It would be relationships. There was a guy who started the Musicians Assistance Program named Buddy Arnold, and he would describe himself as the world's oldest living Jewish junkie saxophone player, and he was Santa Claus. I mean, he had one mission in life, and that was to make sure that whether they had the money for treatment or whatever, that musicians could get sober, and he always said, you know what the biggest problem is for musicians, and always will be? And he'd say, you know what the biggest problem is for musicians and most people? And they won't admit it, but it's true. It's relationships. And when somebody would go out and I'd say, what happened? He'd go, relationship, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh my God. I was 48 years old when I got sober. I didn't have the best childhood, but I had the longest. I mean, it was just, it was fantastic because, let me take you back to little Paulie. Little Paulie was really little. Little Paulie was born in 1940. Little Paulie is 85, and he feels like a tired 34. And when I got sober, I weighed 187, and with bad breath, and never slept, But little Paulie had about 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 was really, really tiny. I had 2 brothers, both 6-footers, and my dad was a 6-footer. all of us alcoholics. I mean, there was, it's like the one thing the family had come together on was the fact that we all just drank to the point where we put our face on the cement. It's what we did. My dad was a construction worker. I went to 9 schools by the time I was in the 9th grade. I was always the new kid in school, and I was always the littlest kid in school, and I never noticed, because I didn't look at things that were unpleasant, because I was an alcoholic long before I drank like one. But I mean, my dad, when I was, 7 or 8 or whatever, he said to my mom, he's like 7. Well, how old is he now? He's 7. He said, should he still be running under coffee tables? And my mom said, no, probably not. So when I was about 8, they took me to a doctor in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, I spent a lot of time, several times, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Si tú quisiera hablar, yo estuve un vato, I wasn't no stinking güerito, man. I didn't, once I got tall enough to see myself in the mirror, I went, oh my God, I'm white, shit, So why am I walking around going, cuidado, la pinche güera me esmerando, yo tengo mi cuete, no problema, It's like because I was not going to be who I was, because my comfort level begins when I'm being somebody else. It's no wonder I wanted to be an actor. I was a natural, perfect fit, be somebody else. But when I was like 8 years old, my dad says, maybe you should have this looked into. So they took me to a country doctor in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who said, I can put some inches on this kid. I can make this little guy grow. I'm going to give him male hormone. Good idea. That's, an embryo of an alcoholic really needs to have a little testosterone right now to straighten himself out, And that's what happened is that like 8, I was, it was the exact wrong thing, because it kind of, it put me into a premature puberty, and when that happens, the bones begin to close off and all. So when I graduated from high school, I was 4'6". I took a spurt of another 4 inches, my version of a spurt, all the way up to 5'2" by the time I was like 25. But they gave me these shots, the male hormone, and there was a rather interesting change. All of a sudden, I had no interest in my toy chest. But my Aunt Edna's chest was, I kept dropping things and to get her to pick them up, so I could, and this is weird for a little boy, because I'm feeling things that make no sense, and I was saying to little girls, let's go in the closet and kiss like they do in the movies, It's like, yeah. That sentence has gotten me in trouble a few times through the years, not just when I was a little kid, but a little, there's something ultra romantic about a hidden love, right? It's also known as being a lying little bastard, my folks saw, they said, oh my God, this is not normal. So let's stop the shots. So they stopped the shots, and it screwed up my body clock completely. So I didn't hit puberty until I was like 22. So high school was not fun. The showers was not fun. My first prayers were to God, who I now call the Big Amigo, was, just, I don't care how tall you make me, but cover me with fur, It's like, when you're in the showers and everybody, and my dad was killed when I was 13 in a car wreck, drunk, and I was shipped off to live with an aunt and uncle in Long Beach, where everybody was 6'1". Everybody had tans like this, What color I have, I got from my light in the refrigerator. It's ridiculous. I'm the whitest person in the world. I said that already, didn't I? God, I'm repeating myself already. That's 85 for you. That's 85, I can hide my own Easter eggs, Yeah, cover me with fur. I was just, and again, I didn't notice. I mean, I didn't have a conscious thought about this is, I mean, I just kept moving. If you saw me in high school and you wanted to talk to me, I would be like, you know, like, I just kept, you know, I just kept moving. And when I was a little kid, I wanted to sing. I mean, I loved to sing. I listened to the radio, and I fell in love with the Great American Songbook at like, you know, as a tiny little guy. And I would sing, "I'm Yours," or "Danny Boy." My dad would get me up in the middle of the night to sing Danny Boy. My dad drank every night with a guy named Ike McShane. And the year that he died, we were living in a 24-foot trailer in Ohio, because he was building the Atomic Energy Commission headquarters, and in a little place called Scioto County, Ohio, and there were no beautiful homes for him to rent, so he bought a 24-foot trailer, and so I would be in the little bed in the back of the trailer, and my dad and my brother we'd both be in the same little bed in the back, and my dad and Ike McShane would get quietly just fried every night. He lived in the trailer next door. And all these construction guys moved kind of at the same time as we did, so that was my dad's tribe, you know. And when his friend came over, they would always say, "You know what, we're not going to talk about politics or religion or the goddamn job, because if we do, we're just going to argue." And then they would have a couple drinks and talk about nothing but politics, religion, and the goddamn job. You know, it's just, and I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I love watching Rachel Maddow and screaming at the TV, this, you know. Yeah. But in the meantime, my dad would get very sentimental. He was a sentimental drunk, and he'd get me up in the middle of the night, and he'd say, "Sing Danny Boy" for Ike McShane. Ike McShane hated me. I mean, for all of you Al-Anons here, I mean, it's just because I should be qualifying as an Al-Anon as well, but I have to tell you that what we put you through is it's an amends to tell you that I recognize what my father was doing. I mean, I was this little guy, and the last thing Ike McShane wanted was to hear some gnome sing Danny Boy. You know? And I saw that, but my dad didn't, because he had these blinders of alcohol, and that he's right about everything, and he's got a big heart, and it's time to get you up, Paulie. We're going to go see the Cleveland Indians play baseball. And he got me up in the middle of the night. This is one of my traditional stories that I tell about my childhood. It explains a ton. My dad got me up about 4 in the morning. It was dark outside. It was raining sideways. And he said, "You know what, we're going to go see the Cleveland Indians play baseball. It's a professional baseball. I'm going to take my son there." So he and Ike McShane got in the 50 Merc that he was driving at the time. I was in the back seat, may have been standing on it for all I know. And my dad started driving through this incredible rainstorm to go see the Cleveland Indians play baseball. And I remember feeling like my concentration was keeping the car on the road, because I can close my eyes at 85 and I can see the headlights in the rain and the car, and I just felt like my concentration would keep it on the pavement. And it was just, you know, that's what we do to you Al-Anons. That's what we do to you. That's the crap we put you through. I mean, that I was propelled into that kind of grandiosity and magical thinking that I had some sort of power that would do that. It may have been the headwaters of my own arrogance and my own ego, you know, that was a huge part of keeping me from learning. Because if I ask you for instructions, I wanted to look like I got you. I got lost in New Mexico, and a guy gave me this absolute instructions on how to not be lost in the forest. And he had to come back at 2 in the morning, and I was still out there, and he said, "I knew you weren't listening, you little asshole. Get in the car," you know. It got me in the middle of the night, you know. Because my dad drove me to Cleveland Indians to see the Cleveland Indians play baseball. He drove to Cincinnati. Cleveland Indians don't play baseball in Cincinnati, you know. And so we get there, and it's nice. You know, the rain is gone, and the parking lot was empty. He said, "Well, we're going to get really good seats," you know. And he sat there for a while. Eventually, got up and he looked at the schedule, and he realized what he'd done. He'd gone to the wrong city, you know. And he came back and he said, "Well, my boy, there's not going to be any baseball today, but it's the thought that counts." And I went, you know what? I think it was an important lesson that I lived by for a lot of years, because for years, and perhaps until I found Alcoholics Anonymous, I was the thoughtiest little bastard you ever met. You know? I mean, I thought about getting the job done on time. I thought about keeping the promises I made. I thought about being faithful to my wives, make that wives, yeah, you know. But that's not who I was until I got here, and you taught me to be a man. You taught me to be comfortable among men. The biggest change for me in 36 years of sobriety is that when I got here, the one thing that I felt that I just didn't even want to sit down in was a men's meeting, you know. Because I thought, excuse the language, but I thought, you know what, a lot of swinging dick mentality, and you know what, I was absolutely 180 degrees wrong, or whatever, because I have found more vulnerability, you know, at men's meetings. I have found amongst the men that I know in Alcoholics Anonymous Wes is like, you know, I call my higher power, I call the big amigo. I stole it from Wes. I am a little thief when it comes to something that is going to give me a little bit of spiritual insurance and a little bit of a lift up. I did not set out to get, I never wanted to be sober. While I was drinking and using, all I wanted was to be Robert Mitchum. I wanted to drink whenever I drank. I wanted to use when I wanted to use. And mainly, if I'm smitten, I'd like to see that fulfilled in a wonderful, orgasmic, and be complimented as an impressive lover. Yeah, those were 4 fabulous minutes, Paul, you know. Or the other side of it, which was like, yeah, it's okay, everybody gets the bends now and then, you know, when you've been living on the devil's dandruff for 3 days and nights, you know. When I got out of high school, I went back and I lived with my mom and my little brother for a while, and I was different, and I wanted to be. I actually started skydiving because I wanted to be different. Different is hard. It's difficult to be different. The world, and it's especially difficult to be different and ignore it. But to be special is dangerous. To be special, and you know what? If you follow this line of thought forward to the point where you find yourselves in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and you realize that, you know what, we're all special. I mean, God, I would give anything to take what we have in these rooms and bottle it and douse Washington, D.C. and the rest of the world with it, because the spiritual life is not a theory. It actually took hold, and we are doing it. We are living a miracle. 5 years before I was born, 5 years before I was born, a hopeless little drunk, an arrogant cocaine addict. 5 years before I was born, 2 alcoholics got together and found they could stay sober if they helped another. Thank you. Is that not magic? Have I not lived a magical life? Are we not the luckiest people in the world that the 2 of them met each other? For God's sake. I got sober. Well, it was a matter of steps. First of all, I had a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful children, and I was high and on the road, and I I couldn't make a living as an actor. I felt like Montgomery Clift, but I looked like Haley Mills, and I just, I couldn't get it. And nobody's young enough in here or old enough to remember who Haley Mills and Montgomery Clift are, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that I started writing songs, and boy, did that shot of male hormone back when I was 9 years old kick in for songwriting, because I spent my life writing codependent anthems, man. I would just get ouch mommy songs, pick me up and love me, And in my 40s, I left my wife and kids for a 22-year-old psych major who said, you know what, I love you too much to watch you die, and I'm leaving you. And I went, it's amazing. I was just thinking of going to rehab. And so I did a place called Schick Shadle, where they do aversion therapy. For 7 months, I did not have a drink. I had no program. I had no sponsor. I had just me and my raw feelings, and I was charming to be around. And of course, I drank. I was in Jamaica, and I sitting around a pool and supposed to be working on a project, and the gentleman came over with a white jacket and the ice and the jar. He said, Mr. Williams, would you like something to drink? Perhaps a rum and coke? And I said, I'll have a very light rum. I can have one. The Paul Williams. I can have one rum and coke. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can have one rum and coke. I'll tell you what happened right before he showed up. I'd been up all night writing, not what I was supposed to write, but writing a song that I knew was going to put me back in the game, put my name back in the headlights, and going to give me the career again as a songwriter that I deserved. I stayed up all night writing this song. I slept a little, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I come out, I sit by the pool, and I listen to what I've written. I took my place beside you, girl. I don't remember the words, but I remember the melody because I had rewritten O Little Town of Bethlehem. I swear to on my children's eyesight, I took my place beside you, Bill. Well, fuck. You don't want to steal from the bigger. Jesus. So the guy comes over and he says, do you want Mr. Williams, do you like a rum and coke? I said, I can have one rum and coke. Very light rum and coke at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 o'clock in the morning, I was at Bob Marley's grave explaining reggae to a lot of black people I didn't know. Because when I'm drinking, I'm just, if I have a drink, I want to toot. If I have a toot, I want to tell you. I found out when I got sober, I'm not a pilot. Oh, my God. So what happened is the little girlfriend was gone, and I went and spent a year working on a terrible movie that I actually love called Ishtar. Bad song. I was the perfect shape to write believable bad songs, and then I was at a place where the career that I thought I had been gone 10 years. Because I had no touch with reality, no real touch with reality. And I got a gig, and I was not getting gigs. I was not being out on the road performing much. I wonder why. And I had a gig in Oklahoma City, and I had been up probably maybe with an hour's sleep or two every now and then for about 3 nights, drinking and packing up the devil's dandruff, as I say, and. Anyway, I was in Oklahoma City. It was an afternoon gig, and the promoter came over to get me and walked me to the gig where my band was all set up and ready to go. And walking down the hallway, the way he described it to me many years, 10 years later, was he said we were walking along, and it was as if somebody picked you by the seat of the pants and the neck and threw you against the wall. And for 45 minutes, I had a complete psychotic meltdown. I was just pure toxicity and lack of sleep. I was out of my mind. I was thrown down escalator stairs there's no escalator in that building, but those stairs were moving for me. He put me in the car to drive me over to the gig, and I could see this little monster version of myself twisting my ears and biting me on the neck, and I was gone. I mean, I was gone. They postponed they asked him what my band is. Does he ever get like this? They said, no, he's a little weird sometimes, but not like this. Doesn't usually happen, Anyway, they postponed the gig, and the next day I did it, and I told the audience I had a reaction to my meds. And I told them the truth. I had accidentally spoken the truth because that's how I was doing life. Life scared the hell out of me. I didn't really belong here, and that's how I did life. And after that, I got on a plane and I drank on the plane back to LA. And I landed at LAX and I called my dealer, Gina. God damn it. Hi, Gina. It's Paulie. Anything going on? And again, and again, and again. Gina! And I'm like, God damn it. But that's not what she's hearing because I do not want to destroy this relationship. I need what she has. And Gina, it's Paul. And then she answers the phone. Hello? And I go, wow. Hi, Gina. It's Paul. She said, I had a feeling it might be, I said, wondering if anything happened. She said, well, sure, honey. Come on over. Do you want me to bring it to you? And I feel great. I mean, it's like, I look better. I mean, already. I haven't had anything I mean, alcohol without the cocaine is not a good high. It's just, I'm drooling and falling in. It's pretty nasty and all. But I feel great. Now she comes over and I get out my deering, my little green deering, and I have it and as soon as I start using this poison, it's gone. I mean, now I'm back to that place. I'm too high, I'm too low. It's like, wait a minute, now this is the worst crap I ever had in my life. Where can we get some more? And but what was I experiencing when she said, I said, anything happening? And it was just, I think what I was experiencing was faith in what we're basically told in this program, that, that the spiritual life is not a theory. And it was an example where a higher power, which was a distorted and deadly higher power, the faith in that higher power had momentary healing qualities. And how many of you had that experience of just you've got what and I'd get so in such a great state of mind, I'd have a couple toots and I'd throw it away. I don't need that crap. And then what have I done? And then I'm calling it the other. Anyway, I came back to LA, I started drinking and using, and I wrote a book that has a line in it about the fact that it was 2 weeks later. The way I tell the story now is that it was like 5 days, I think 5 or 6 days later, because I've had a chance to compare notes with the gentleman that was the promoter. What happened is 5 days after that meltdown, so on a Saturday morning, the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's a doctor, and he says, well, I found a place for you. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, he was a psychiatrist. He said, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and he says, you called me last night, at home, incidentally. Not sure how you got the number, but you called me at home. And you said you wanted to get sober. And I said, well, somebody's been using my body again, and which was a line I used fairly often because I was occasionally a blackout drunk. And he did not laugh. He continued. He said, well, you said that you didn't want to drive drunk with your kids in the car anymore like your dad did with you. God, we're so lucky. I mean, it touches me to remember that and think how I could have hung up that phone, but I didn't. He said, you took a lie in every day. You can't keep track of the lies. And I was so tired. And I said, yeah. And I went to New Beginnings in Century City, and I found you. And you found me. And we went looking together, and I just, I never had a gang with a treehouse. But that came as close to it as anything I'd ever experienced in my life. I was just like, I loved you all. I mean, I loved you. You made me feel safe. You listened to me. You laughed when I told you stuff that was awful. And my sponsor was a little guy named Jerry Hunter. Jerry Hunter was my limo driver. I used to, every time I'd ride in the stretch, because I had a full bar in it, driving up through the Hollywood Hills. And I'd always ask him if you want a drink, and he'd say, not today, not today. And I asked him every time, and I'd sit closer and closer to him. Eventually I got my head sticking through there and all, and because there was something about him that made me feel good. And when I wound up in treatment, I called him and I said, would you be my temporary sponsor? He was my temporary sponsor. I asked him for the years, every now and then I'd go, you sure you don't want to change it? He went, don't screw with it, Paulie. If it's working as temporary sponsor, let's stay right there. His whole program was basically in one sentence. I remember the first time he said to me, how you treating, Paul? The world, how you treating the world, Paulie? And I went, momentito, a slip of the tongue. Don't you mean, how's the world treating me? He said, I don't give a rat's ass how the world is treating you. He said, well, yes, I do, because I love you. But I'll tell you something, I can't do anything about that. But I will promise you one thing. If you are vigilant about the way you treat your fellow man and woman, everything in your life will get better. Everything. And he was right. It's at the heart of AA. I mean, it's the elegance of kindness. And that's the thing that you got that just grabbed me and picked me up. And all of a sudden I was sitting in your lap, and I was just, and all I wanted to do was give it away. I went to UCLA and I got my certification as a drug and alcohol counselor. And I entered what everybody here that knows me from those days, it was like, that's where I picked up the nickname, the Paulie Lama, I was the Paulie Lama. And I know I must be getting along, but there's a story that I have to tell you at the end because it's the best part of my story. I mean, my life came back. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. My daughter said, Dad, my daughter's a therapist in her 40s in Colorado. She said, Dad, it's so funny they call you the Paulie Lama. Because when we were kids, you were gone. And if you were around, you didn't know you were around, But I think you finally made full tilt Papa Bear. And that's the best review I ever got in my life. Full tilt Papa Bear, That's as good as it gets. So I started writing songs again eventually, and it turned out that as a volunteer counselor, I saved one life that I know of, and he's blithering on right in front of you right now. And it's just the greatest gift I've ever been given. When I was 10 years sober, I went to Nashville to write some more codependent anthems, and while I was there, I was asked to speak at the jail. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to go and tell this story like an H&I. If you go behind bars and you share, it's just I come out of there with the guys that I was sharing with, and we're just floating. It's just like, oh my God, we were fabulous. Did you see that? It's like, I was like this combination of Jiminy Cricket and Gandhi. I'm just so high on sobriety because it's a better buzz. So admit it, being sober is a better buzz because we're all of a sudden we're getting used to magic, Anyway, so I go back to my hotel room, and I go through the lobby, and it's packed. I mean, all these guys that are 6 feet tall with these big buckles with horns and on them. A hug can give me brain damage. These guys, don't squeeze on me. But I make my way through this crowd, and I'm just full of light and love, and just the love of being able to share this gift. And I go to my room, and my magnetic key doesn't work for the third night in a row, and God damn it! And it's a quick trip from Gandhi to Himmler for me. I'm just like, son of a bitch. I go downstairs, make my way through this crowd again, and I go, but I'm nice to the guy. Oh, that's perfect. Is that 10 minutes? Oh, thank God, I thought it was 10 minutes over. That's fantastic. So anyway, I mean, you've taught me restraint of pen and tongue, so I'm nice to the kid behind the counter. And I say, look, I know it's not your fault, but why should I have to go through this crowd, this massive crowd, 3 nights in a row? And at that point, somebody taps me on the shoulder. And I turned around, and the guy said, I don't mean to bother you. He said, my name's Gary, and we're promoters. We promote, performing arts centers and rodeos, jugglers and clowns and songwriters and all. I booked you like 10 years ago. He says, Gary, Oklahoma City. And I was like, oh my God, are you the guy when I did my Linda Blair and The Exorcist? Lick me, and spinning my head around. He said, yeah, that was me. And I said, well, I'm 10 years sober, and I just spoke at blah, blah, poly, blah, blah, poly, just spoke at the jail, blah, 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 certified drug and alcohol, work at the physician's assistant program, me, fabulous me, fantastic me. And he said, yeah, I heard in the rooms that you were sober. And I went, wait a minute, are you a friend of Bill? And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a chip for 7 years, or 17 years. And I went, oh my God. You were 10 years, you were 7 years, I'm quick. You were 7 years sober then. He said, yeah. I said, what'd you think? He said, I was so scared. I thought you were dying. I thought you were dying. What he didn't say is I thought I hired a professional, an award-winning songwriter to come and do an amazing evening. And what I got was somebody that couldn't stand up. He said none of that. He said, I was so scared. I said, what did you do? He said, I called my sponsor. I went, yeah. Anybody new in here? You run into some gnome that's head is spinning and talking about himself and passing out and throwing up, call your sponsor. It's a really good idea. I said, of course you called your sponsor. What did he say? He said, well, he didn't say anything. He hung up on me. And I went, he hung up on you? And I'm sure my thought was like, oh my God, you need a different sponsor, a better sponsor than that. But he said, yeah. And I said, why? He said, so he could start making calls. And we put together a prayer circle of drunks in Oklahoma City. Prayer circle in Oklahoma City that I would find relief in or out of the rooms, God, we have a God. We are told that we find a higher power, a God of our understanding. I don't have a God of my understanding. The God that I need is just small enough for me to understand. Wouldn't be able to deal with my ego But I'll tell you something. I don't understand electricity either, but I use it. I flick a switch and it lights up my life, and that's the way I feel about this magical, amazing power that is there for us. And I was new, and you gave me Emmett Fox, and you said, read this. And at the moment that I was told I was powerless over alcohol, I was handed the writings of again, somebody who was huge before I was born, who said that what you dwell on, you create. If you are motivated by love, if you find, I believe that, and everything that I've got from Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that the generosity and gratitude are fuel. And I am nothing but grateful. Nothing but grateful. I sat over there, and when I went to get coffee, so I'd get my sparkle up a little bit before I spoke, as I was walking back, and somebody said, "You get nervous before you speak?" And I lied to him. I said, "No, thank you." No, I lied to him. I said, "No." Because the fact is, I was a little nervous, and then I heard Art, and I went, "Oh, well, shit, this is, because I've got a big ego. I've got a big ego, and but I got to tell you something. You've pumped up my heart, and it's much more powerful. My gratitude is much more powerful than that arrogance. My gratitude is much more powerful than the desire to let you know who I am and who I've been, because I want to know what's coming next, because this is just spectacular. I just had a back operation where they went in less of an hour and they fixed my back. I had a dead nerve in my back, and while the doctor was in there with microscopic glasses and all, and he did something as if he was an alcoholic. He said, "I don't want any other little nerves to die in your butt." So he dug a little canal so that the next time one of my vertebrae would collapse like this one did, if that happened again, that it wouldn't kill any little nerves, that they would have a little canal to be in. And he said he was cleaning up the residue of the bone, all in, with microscopic glasses and robotic screens and all. And this is what he's telling to this co-surgeon, who's telling me later that while he's cleaning this up, he notices the little dead nerve twitches. And he goes, "That can't be right. Look, that's another twitch." And all of a sudden, I'm watching this, and he begins to vibrate. This little dead nerve in your, I've got Lazarus in my lumbar. It's like this nerve is coming back to life. And he says it's vibrating very slowly at first, now faster, now faster. And he described it as joyously, vibrating joyously. And a big tear rolled down this lady's surgeon's, she's got all this stuff on her. And she's crying. She's all about science and data and all this and specifics. And she's crying over that. And so I'm crying, and I can't talk when I get emotional. My minister calls it God's punctuation. It's just, isn't that wonderful? God's punctuation is like, we need a little space there for some music. And I said to her, I croaked like Kermit, who's a close friend. I croaked. I croaked. Music is vibration. Music is vibration. And then we just lost it and all. And I thought of a quote of Rumi's that I'll leave you with, and Rumi said, "Sell your cleverness, and purchase bewilderment." Sell your cleverness. Yeah, I can be clever. The love boat, I can be clever. I made a living being clever. But the bewilderment. If I can, with the rest of my life, remind somebody that if you're looking at the knots in your shoelaces, walk out and stand under a tree and realize that you've got a system of blood being moved around in your body that is the same as the roots of that tree. That we think of somebody and they call us. We think of somebody and we call us. This has been just too fabulous. I love you so much. I'm glad I wasn't as boring as I thought I was going to be. I love you. God bless you.